welcome back. Welcome back. All the citizens around the world and the ships at sea. Today's Friday. What are we at? Ooh, the June 20th. First day of summer. Guess what that
Yes,
means?
means
Every
everybody.
day gets shorter and shorter.
Absolutely.
I think it's 189 days to Christmas.
I look so much forward to the summer solstice.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, and days get longer, longest day of the year, and then everything is downhill from there.
Well, it's kind of that way for life for some of us. Anyway, how's it going today? Art, you've got some sales stuff going on with copiers. We have Kevin here and calling in on the hotline, calling in the WKRP Cincinnati is Joe Barganier from some point south of not the border, thank God, but south of Jersey at least.
At least South Jersey, right?
And east of California, much and south of Michigan. So Joe's here. He's in Fort Lauderdale. Let's see. Okay. We've got, I had a whole bunch of notes that happened this week
So,
on Copier World. Yeah, Art, what up?
just Q2 ends for me on Monday. I still got a chance with 3 deals out there, and I just had a decent one not get any credit approvals. So we shall see.
Gotta love that. So
Will I make Q2 revenue? No, I'll be short. But shit happens.
It does. It's a doldrum. Again, it's summertime. Now they say, it's been said.
Can't blame summer.
I know.
You can only blame yourself.
Does your quota keep going up, or is the quota the same and it's just
Well, my quota went up from last year.
okay?
Oh, those who have never been in sales. The quotas always go up.
I don't know.
Always go up.
Right.
Well, COVID but that would have been the first time in 5 decades that somebody's quota didn't go up was because of a worldwide state of fear. Not a real thing, but don't get me going on that. No, they always go up. Quotas suck. They're the worst motivational mechanisms in the world, but everything in the world rotates on it. So you got to play it.
There's a cure for that. If you can get subscriptions and then you have stable income but that's what we've been talking about is like, if you can make the change to sell more software subscriptions and you have a predictable revenue stream.
Right.
But we just never been able to make that transition, I don't think, right?
Oh my God. Yes. The copier industry is all about, they don't call it subscriptions, lease payments. It's a monthly repeating revenue, MRR. Blah, blah, blah. It's been that way since when, Art? 79, 78?
I started in 80.
Okay.
But in 80, I started out, I didn't have a revenue quota. I had a GP quota. And I kind of like GP quotas better than revenue quotas.
Yeah, because you can sell one deal at a big GP and be done, right? Profits at the end of the day should be, but yeah, some people want the top line revenue, and who cares about profit? Well, I mean, everybody cares.
It isn't as if the top line revenue drives profit.
Yeah.
So, and then there's all sorts of other components that go in
And
there. It's
and the back end, I call it the back end cocaine money for dealers.
Which the salesperson never gets.
The
Salesperson doesn't get any credit for any back end stuff. It's all the upfront, and you're lucky. When was the last time you heard of a salesperson getting paid on the service contract, Art?
I haven't got paid on service contract in years.
Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. It's on hardware margin, which is great for the dealers, right? They can give the equipment away because the service agreements are going to be the monthly repeatable revenue that's predictable and
substantial.
Yep. Look at Joe.
Yeah. Man, I had it good back in the distribution days. We'd get spiffs, we'd get rebates, we'd get trips, we'd get points. We get good margins, we get leads. But I've been in that business.
Art, we still get President's Club. There's spiffs in, it's not like the heyday.
Spiffs in that,
yeah. It's not like
get Rico points, right?
Yeah. And all the leads you get are all qualified and ready to go in the
all the
cycle.
leads I get. All the leads I get are mine.
Says that's a little. I feel a little sarcasm there.
No, I do generate them through, as Greg
Yeah,
knows, I have a blog site
yeah,
for
Arts leads.
Jersey
Yeah.
plotters.
yeah.
And basically that's where I get my wide format leads.
On his own.
On his
Yeah,
own. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
nobody gets leads in the copier world that are qualified and ready to sell in 30
yeah,
days. That's not
yeah.
a if you do that, you're not in sales, right? That's inbound. That's trinkets and widgets and things like that, not solutions. Wow. That conversation took a left turn, but I love it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to go there. Everybody's been talking about it, right, for a long time, but I don't know if we've ever made that transition to get there.
I've been
It's
writing about quotas since I mean, the imaging channel's got a couple of them on there, and it's the machine. You can't change it. You're not going to
uh,
change it
uh,
until the world goes through some sort of pandemic that alarms everyone to what's real and good in life versus what's made up and fake and a narrative. And then some sort of strange technological advancements makes narratives obsolete, middle management obsolete. That'd be COVID and AI. So until those two things happen within a 5-year period, we're not going to. Well, it did happen.
yeah, those did happen, right?
It did happen. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but there's been a lot of articles in the last week that from highfalutin types that say as much as 90% of the existing jobs today, knowledge worker jobs, will be gone,
Yeah.
and not in a decade, 36 months.
I'm okay with that.
Well, there's nobody there. They don't need to make copies.
Nobody makes copies anymore.
Hey,
They,
speaking of, oh, you
they,
know what? I meant this. I didn't bring it up. A study came out yesterday, not from our industry, from CFO. It's a magazine that writes information for CFOs. They put out a survey a while back about going paperless. I missed that, but I saw the results is 95% of the respondents, and these aren't copier salespeople or people who have a vested interest in marks on paper. These are CFOs and also in banking and everything. 95% of them say they think they are going to be paperless in the next 2 years. That's
interesting.
a lot.
Yeah,
I've never even seen that.
that is a lot.
It is a lot, and that's interesting because that's a mainstream kind of magazine, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not our industry at all. But I was at AIM a couple months ago. AIM is for the Association for Information Management, uh, Association for Intelligent Information Management. AIM. They've been around 80 years,
Yeah.
and this is an industry that does document imaging, content management, document management. That's what we do. That's what we've done forever. There's a lot of professionals in there. But the AIM audience is also very honest about assessing their own internal status, right? So Petra Beck from InfoSource, she always does this survey of 0 to 5 scale. 5 means you're fully automated, totally digital, everything's no paper whatsoever. And then 4 is you're almost there. 3, you kind of got a good process. 2, not bad. 1, you're kind
Right.
of digitized, and 0.
Sounds
So
familiar.
the AIM audience, she asks them every time. She says, what scale? And pretty much the AIM audience was about a 2, 1 or 2. Even that audience, as sophisticated as they are, still was pretty honest that it's hard to digitize stuff. It's not
Oh, yeah.
hard to get. It's not hard to get the image from the machine, but if you want to pull off data from the machine and you want to, and it's an unstructured kind of document that doesn't have form to it,
Yep.
right? In other words, it's not a fixed form that has the data fields in certain
Right.
areas, or you want to do translation, or you got to get a good image quality. It's not easy still, right? So when people say they want to go paperless like that, when 95% of people paperless, and they're going to be forced by regulation, like remember when the electronic medical record
Yes.
mandate came
AMR.
out? Yeah, and everybody had to go digital. Guess what? There's still a lot of paper in healthcare all over the place, right?
Tremendous amount of fax machines
Ah,
still.
precisely, right?
Yep.
You see
So,
those deck chairs? They need rearranging.
yes,
So
yeah,
I'm in that world of trying to sell document management or IDP,
Hmm.
and it's like pulling freaking nails.
it is.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well, I mean, okay. All right. Well, maybe it isn't. It was 5 years ago. I mean, well, I shouldn't say it was complicated.
Still is.
but there was it can't be that same way as it was before, or maybe it is.
It's getting better. I mean, there was traditional capture. I mean, they used to call it capture market. So there was Abby and Nuance and
Right.
Tesseract. There was traditional,
Nuance.
yeah, there was traditional OCR companies. Then this whole industry of intelligent document processing emerged because you could do things like computer vision, and you didn't need the traditional optical character recognition. So you could, there's other ways you can classify and extract data from documents. So with all these new high fancy companies, there's like 400 IDP companies now, where there was only a couple real capture companies. So you're right, Greg. It has become easier because the technology is really good. You don't need a lot of training sets, and you just feed maybe 5 or 10 documents. It can learn this model, this model, this model. So AI has helped the capture industry to be IDP. So the cost has come down, the complexity has come down. So IDP is more available. It's a very fragmented market for sure,
Yeah.
but it's a growing market for sure. But
Hmm.
if somebody like Art is trying to sell an IDP solution or part, it's hard to just sell IDP. It's got to be integrated into your overall AI strategy or your content management strategy or your business process workflow,
Right.
right?
Right.
Selling standalone products is gone by the wayside, right?
No, you
It's
had to
got to,
integrate the whole thing. I mean,
that's right.
and that's the only ones I ever did was through an MPS program,
Hmm.
because
I don't.
you had to go out and do an assessment of the
Uh,
hardware, and then you do an assessment of the workflow around the hardware, and design your workflows per department to be integrated into the whole document management
uh,
system. It's not, you know, it's not for the
uh,
churches,
Hmm.
but could save 80% of labor at some points. That's back in the olden days. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen till Generation Z makes the
They're
decision
coming.
maker level.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see. Joe did ask a question. He goes, "Can you OCR file folder full of PDFs and route into an IDP solution?" Wow. The
Yeah,
answer is yes.
yeah, definitely. Let me see his question here. Can you OCR file folder it? Yeah, I mean, I could see this, Joe. I don't know the exact use case, but I can imagine, you scan some kind, yeah, so the contents of a file folder, and maybe you want to OCR the label itself, and then it says, okay, apply this kind of IDP modeling, right? Maybe these are contracts, right? And this IDP has been fine-tuned for contracts. Then this file folder is for agreements. I don't know, right? So, but instead of sending just a stack of stuff to an overly broad, just like LLMs, instead of sending these unknown document types to a general IDP engine, you still want to fine tune them for specific document types. So, yeah, I could see using OCR and IDP together. IDP is a more advanced kind of OCR. OCR is good for zones, it's good for full text. But if you want to do things like really, scan a document, OCR it, and then understand it contextually with natural language, like
Oh,
it's like the bear jumped over, or the bear went to go fire somebody, right? Bear can be uh, bear is in a person, or bear is in, well, those are spelled differently. But fire,
right.
like fire is a fire, or it's a fire or a person, right? So to contextually understand this is a verb, an adjective, or whatever, you do that through natural language. So an IDP might be able to understand. It understands the words in context, and then understands the sentences, and then the sentences how they relate to other sentences and paragraphs, and then how this document relates to other documents. So IDP gets into very, very more advanced stuff. But
Yeah. I mean, the way I remember, I think it's what Joe's talking about is, but even before AI, is just scan it in the hot folders. That's all you did. I mean,
yeah,
if it
Yeah.
was AI or AP, the person had to know what folder it went into
yeah,
at the basic, and then it got a little more smart, a little more smarter, and then the Doc Man system picked it up
yep,
and did the OCR, and that by OCR could just be zone
yep,
OCR,
yep.
which you know. But then, so the challenges that I've run into, I'm sure they're the same, is twofold. It's hardware overhead, right, because of the scanning and the processing and the documents, but it's archiving. If a company's got 15 filing cabinets or 15 rooms of paper, the theory is you've got to capture the history, scan all that in before you go forward with your new EDM system, which,
Mm,
you
It,
know,
it's
not entirely the case,
right. I mean, that was the
right?
mentality back in the old days. And a
Right.
lot of people just said, nah, day forward.
Well, now you teach them as you need to pull those documents,
Right.
then they go into the IDP.
Yeah.
but But that's maybe why that's driving that 95% of the CFO magazine. Because
Good point.
if you do day forward, you only get the computer only knows about the day forward data. But when you're doing AI, you need to have a whole full 360 picture of your entire corpus, right? Or else that AI engine, that LLM doesn't know, right? It's a
Yeah,
computer.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to ask some of my AI buddies is because you've been hearing, maybe you have or you haven't, that the data's gone. We've already eaten all the data off the internet. The LLMs have gotten all the data, and they're worried about training LLMs on data that was created by LLMs. So
Yeah.
there's an issue there of data degradation and things like that that can occur. An argument that's coming up or bubbling up is the data itself is hard for me to get, but the data itself isn't used. It's the methodology and the patterns behind that data that trained the LLM. So in theory, once you train data on models, you don't need historical data anymore, because now you have the methodology. So you
Yep.
can just plug that into a real world data stream that is live, happening as it recorded as it happens. And then the models can take over from there. They don't need a 360 view, I guess. But, and I kind of understand it, because you're not training them on the 2 + 2 = 4. You're training them on how to add.
But
Okay.
but but the data still came in and then it learned and then it didn't need the
Once.
data. Yeah,
Right.
it once. So you're absolutely correct that it doesn't need to retain the data, right? Because it's already
Retain.
learned.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and in fact, there was just a court ruling
Mhm.
that OpenAI needs to maintain the chat history, where OpenAI said, "I don't care." They weren't even going to fight it. Usually,
Right.
usually these data people are like, "Nope, no, we're keeping all the data." They're like,
Well,
"Screw it."
that I can talk about that. That's a
Yeah,
lawsuit thing
yeah,
that the New York, whatever the hell, New York Times, whatever, wants to be able to go through all those chats
yeah.
and find evidence that it was a conspiracy to capture their data and use their content to train. So, and that's a bad precedent. I mean, that lit a flare off to the whole world going, wait a minute. So all of my chats are now accessible by the New York Times,
Yep.
or, you know, the ICE, whoever, FBI, Doge, all, and I don't have a problem with the hierarchies having access to the meta, right? That's the metadata is what they all use. But when they can say, no, I can get right down to that particular conversation, I don't know if I like that,
Yeah.
right? I don't care if you teach the LLM how to add, but just don't show them how I didn't add it
Right.
correctly.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want anyone knowing I can't add to specific. But that's a
Yeah.
very interesting, because it crosses copyrights, creativity,
Yeah.
all the things that are AI is literally cutting up and
But
destroying as we speak. Disney's doing the same thing with I forget, whatever, Mid-Journey, right? Because people are creating visions of Darth Vader on their own with lightsabers and everything on their own, and Disney says that's Mid-Journey's problem. They owe us money for that, because that's our copyright.
yeah. Yeah, but just to your point about like them not needing to retain the data. Like in the old days, we'd want to retain the data, right? Even OpenAI says we don't want to.
Don't want to.
It's
No.
because they've already trained, to your point, they've trained the algorithms and the models already on the data the one time. They don't need to retain it anymore, right? It doesn't provide
Right.
any, it's just a liability risk to them. So
Yeah,
forget
and
it.
to even explore that even more. So if we assume that the LLMs have been trained on a universal set of
Yeah,
metadata,
yeah.
right, and optimized, so why would I want them to train on my accounts payable process when I know darn well it's not a very good process? Why wouldn't I
Well,
want to use the LLMs optimized, learned by the universe of accounts payable processes,
be,
and
because
implement that?
because it doesn't know in accounts payable process, it doesn't know your vendors and it doesn't know
But it doesn't
your,
matter.
yes, it
It
does.
knows how to look for a vendor. No, the
No,
methodology has been captured.
but
The
still,
methodology.
yeah, but still, okay. So it knows how to extract the stuff, but still doesn't know your business process, your people, your. It's still you still want to learn on your own data, right? So
No.
I think so.
Why?
Yeah, because okay. So let's take Google. Let's just take them. They index the world's data. They crawled all the internet and they indexed everything. Okay, great. That's universal knowledge. But behind the corporate firewall, I've got certain data that they don't know about.
You
And
have data. You
yeah.
have data, but you don't have methods. An accounts payable, when you go to school and you want to learn how accounts payable works or accounts receivable works or how a general ledger works, you don't learn anyone's specific general ledger. You learn how to generate a general ledger.
Yeah, but does it, how do, I'm XYZ company.
Mhm.
How does it know what accounts go in my general ledger? What account, what, what
That's
GL accounts do I set
right.
up?
Right, right,
What
right.
are my vendors,
That
right?
makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
And I can understand that. So the AI in general will know the difference between a vendor and a client. Now, that's a bridge, that's a jump. I understand that. But that's where I'm going with it. All right.
Okay,
And
so I
then
just,
maybe you do have to, maybe you do have to train it, but I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I'll give you a real example. So we had I had a partner they created an AI for email. So they use a general LLM, Llama,
Hmm.
but they had to train on specific ontologies. Like they had to define their vendors and their ICP, their ideal customer profile, and it took them like 2 months. But they had to train a specialized LLM on top of a general LLM. So, to your point, like it could understand what a GL is and what accounts are, but didn't know the specifics of it. So it took the internal email, reviewing the internal email to pull out those entities, and then make their own kind of email IA system. So.
Well, they made their own, they made the system fit into their existing system. Yeah. Yeah, they
Yeah,
made the data fit into their existing system, which
yeah,
may be flawed, right?
yes.
I mean, if you think about you were thinking SaaS, you're thinking like Joseph Oracle, you're thinking the old school way, which is fine. That's the way it is. I'm just thinking there might be a better and easier way that magic box is going to know that it'll
Yeah.
go through your
It-
your email, and once you tell it, so
yeah.
you're saying you got to tell it that company is both a customer and a vendor.
Yeah, and I think we're probably at that point where you just feed the data, and then like Joe's saying in chat here, you feed the data, and then it will give you suggestions on this looks like your vendors, right? This looks like your customers. This looks like your GL accounts that we want to create for you. So it might be able to do a lot of that stuff, and you just say, okay, it looks good, or clean it up a little bit, and then it's good. So this old school way of like setting up your database and setting up your GL accounts and setting up your vendor, uh, your vendor pick list, all that kind of stuff could
Oh.
probably be automated. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's what I'm seeing more and more is that when people say they're implementing AI or LLMs, they're trying to fit the AI and LLM into a 1950s model.
yeah.
They're trying to take it from 12 dimensions to 2, and that won't work. It it won't work. It'll work for 6 months. That's what we've been seeing too. Look at all the. I think something happened last week. One of these AI updates just got rid of 1,000 different companies that were working in the old models using the LLM as an engine, and then that one aspect that they were all making money on went away and became part of the LLM. So
It's almost like we took data in, then we put it in systems. We put it in SharePoint, Oracle, SAP.
right.
Then it did its stuff, whatever, in those line of business systems. But now we want to take all that data and put it back into an AI engine, right? So centralize everything on the AI and then make AI agents out of the data that's in the AI. So it's kind of like we went from mainframe computers and dumb terminals to PCs. So we had distributed computing. And then now we're bringing it back to centralized data management. And because if you can't get this data into the AI, then you don't have this full view of all your data and can't make decisions and predictive analytics and the things you could do with AI, right? So
Well, yeah. I mean, that's still you're still going back to the original. We don't need historical data anymore.
uh,
That's my opinion. I mean, and
uh,
you're seeing it not as much, but you're seeing it. I mean, price. There's all sorts of examples, but yeah, I get it. I get it. In the SMB and down where we're at, it's much more comfortable to say, I need to clean up my data before I put AI in there. When you're jumping over the whole fact that AI can clean up your data,
mhm.
you don't need to have to hire someone for $50,000 to go in and add your labels and connect your relational databases in C++ before you put it at AI. You might have needed to do that in the old days before you went to Salesforce or HubSpot or any of the CRMs. Yeah, we got to clean that data up, right? Before it goes into the CRM, or
Yeah.
all the fields are going to be wrong, all the names are going to be wrong, the phone numbers will be reversed. We got to clean that up. Those days are going away. It's a
Yeah.
mess
No
right
stru-
now. But
you don't need-
AI, yeah, it's structured, right?
it's
Actually,
not-
think about it. We're going to unstructured,
Yeah.
which is more normal, more natural, more, as Joe would say, organic. Anyway, that was my rant. What else is going on in copiers? Art?
You're on mute.
Art's on mute. he tuned out.
Now I had some motorcycles going by the highway, and
Oh,
I didn't want everybody to hear the thunderous roar of
ooh, Thunder
cycles going by.
Road. Bruce
Yeah.
Springsteen from New Jersey.
So news front, a couple things maybe we can talk about. Canada report announced 2025 young influencers, which I don't mind, right? But why is it always about the young influencers? Why isn't it about the old bastards like us?
The real influencers.
Well, the real influencers, right? The ones who are driving innovation, driving
The big gravity
conversations.
pools like the sun don't get the attention. The little planets that rotate the sun get the attention.
Right. So I just put a comment on there. I think I think that that elder generation is still heavily involved and is driving innovation. So maybe you
Wow.
need to double check that.
Oh boy, we can unpeel that.
Did I get a response? No.
No, that's not the narrative. That's not the way the copier media works. Don't get me going on that, because that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, you see that a lot of that's projection, and that there is some value to the young that generation coming in, right? And
There's a lot, because that
right.
next generation is going to dictate what's probably what's going to happen in the next 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what toner cartridges are they going to sell in 20 years from now?
None.
Maybe they'll be re-inking ribbons.
Yeah, that would be an 1870s gig, right?
Yeah, the Epson LQ 2550. Here's Joe.
So
yeah.
another interesting thread I read is wide format printers are going to reach 20.4 billion by 2032, 7 years.
How can anyone predict anything beyond 24 months? So they're saying that wide format will be a bigger market in 6 years, or
Well, they're just projecting what the overall revenue is going to be. But if you want to pay $3,500 and buy their report, they'll spell it out for you. More of a teaser, most likely, because like you said, who the hell can predict 7 years? We can't predict what the hell's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. Interesting.
I can predict that the sun will come up tomorrow.
Careful.
Yeah, very careful.
Careful.
Let's see. Canada in the news. Xerox's acquisition of Lexmark was approved by the European Commission.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. I mean, what the hell do they have to do with it? I guess because that's all the countries in Europe, right?
That's all the countries in Europe,
except for
correct.
the UK. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Couple of comments about the Rico and Brother partnership. One person had said, well, where the heck has Rico been for the past 5 years with A4?
Yikes. Okay.
So that was an interesting thread. Lots of IT stuff. IT stuff is probably press releases are twice the amount of press releases from the copier industry. Just a lot more going on there. Pacific Office Automation MSP Partner of the Year. Something here about crickets.
Crickets? What's that, Art?
It says here, Consortium for Robotic Interface Copiers Knowledge Engineering Training and Service.
Say that again, slower. Seriously, what was the first part?
The C is for consortium.
Excellent.
R for robotic integration.
Love it.
I need another sip of bourbon. C is for copiers. K is for knowledge. E for engineering, right?
Yeah.
T for technology.
Technology.
C,
oh,
service.
S is for services.
What office equipment dealers do best?
Wow. Okay, I can see that. Excellent. That's genius.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
What about crickets, Art?
Well, the three of us here are involved in the consortium. And we are bringing a POC to concept in Tampa in November. And we are going to have our own robot, which is actually en route to Kevin Neal as we speak.
Yep, we're gonna take it. We're gonna program it to do intelligent stuff. So the robot itself does certain functions. It could survey a room and then navigate the room automatically. Well, out of the box, not automatically. It's already been programmed to do that. Then what we're gonna do is take some data sets, like our Greg and I have been bantering here. You know, our own data, not the general world data, but we're gonna train it to understand copy machines and the specifics of error codes and how to fix it and how to resupply it. So it's going to be a combination of featuring the robotics, but again, training it special activities by training an LLM, and it's a little edge computer that's mounted on the robot itself. So it ought to be a great showcase in November.
It's cool. It's very cool. Yeah, LLM, LiDAR, 3D cameras.
Yep.
Robotic
Stop
arm.
me if I'm wrong, right? Voice stuff to do with the voice activation and face rec and all that kind of thing,
Yep.
right? Because that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
We're going to be able to talk to it. We're going to be able to ask it questions. We're going to have it motor around the room, probably say hello to everybody,
That's nifty. That's cool. That's cool.
right?
Huh.
Yeah, and it's a prototype, so it's not going to be like it's not like a Terminator that can actually go and drive cars and reach into the machine and do stuff, but it's going to give people the opportunity to learn together and create a robot that does stuff, that's specialized, that does the main out of the box functions, but also does, things that we train it to do. So it's going to learn. It has facial recognition. Yeah, it's got cameras, right? Just like scanners and MFPs, they have scanning. Their cameras too, right?
Right.
They just happen to scan documents. This will be able to take videos and still images through its camera too. So there's very much a tie-in, and I'm excited to see all the people, the different use cases too, right? One person has this use case or one or two use cases that's very nichey, but also very important because if you calculate the time that's used on these use cases, and I'm not going to spill the beans, right? You're going to have to come November and see this. But we will have use cases that you can't think, or you could probably think are so obvious, but cost industry a lot of time, a lot of money. And if you calculate all that, and these robots can do those tasks, right? Then an individual business will save time and money and generate more revenue. And then you times that by 10, 50, 100,
Right.
1,000 dealers. Then there's a reason to build a production robot that can do certain things, right? If you say, hey, go replace paper in my copy machine, and I don't have to get up from my desk, and I can sit there and I continue to do work, right? I'm servicing customers, I'm making outbound calls, I'm doing work while that robot goes and does whatever I would have had to do, right? So that half an hour of time I save there times how many times that happens a day worldwide, you're talking pretty good productivity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And how about
So-
when the robot knows that the paper tray is empty?
That's right. Then it automatically does those things. And
Right.
so in art, right, with these managed print survivors, they get all the data. So all they have to do is feed that data to the robot. The robot does what we're going to train it to do. And then there you have a solution.
Comes in on a DCA, tells
Yeah.
them that there's an error code somewhere or whatever, and
Yeah.
at the very least. Well,
Places
this is
the
very
service call.
interesting. What else is there going on with crickets?
Crickets.
Well, you
Well,
got the POC.
one interesting dealer is interested in training,
Oh, yeah.
sales training.
Yeah.
mentioned it. And he mentioned the fact that he'll bring in a sales trainer and he'll get charged X amount of dollars for it for that day or maybe that couple days. And within the time that the trainer leaves, 80% of everything that he taught is lost or forgotten. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Then he says, okay, so to reinforce it, I've got to bring that trainer in more often because I've got older reps, I've got new reps, I've got reps that are changing.
People are
And
people. Yeah.
it's a terrible expense for him to consistently bring in that trainer to keep the knowledge up for his staff so they can get more sales. So his thought was, well, we have a robot and we train that robot for sales training. Now, Greg had a good thought on this, and his best thought that I like is basically one-on-ones.
Ooh.
So where the sales rep can actually ask a robot the question. Let's say that sales manager's not available, or they lost their sales manager, or maybe that salesperson is in the field. They can actually communicate with that robot and start asking it questions live to get some immediate help.
Right. Right.
Right, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good lead because, I mean, Art and I have been doing it for a while. We've got this thing called Celeste, who, if you, and it's a Chat GPT, we'll just call it a custom thingy. And if you ask Celeste what her mission is, whether it's on a robot or on a PC or wherever, she's going to answer that she is the last sales trainer you'll ever need to engage, because Celeste, the LLM, has links and knowledge into almost every single sales training that's ever been around, from Schiffman to Gap to the Submarine to Xerox's, IBM's, all that stuff that's been public domain, by the way, out on the interwebs, are in her head. So when you ask her a question of, hey, how can I talk to this guy? Well, you're going to have to say, well, what this is. He's a 20 employee construction company that does HVAC here locally in Milwaukee, has been around for 40 years, blah, 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 and has a kind of whatever it is that's up for lease. What are the hot buttons? What challenges does an HVAC guy in Milwaukee have to challenge or have to face in his business? Well, how should I approach it? Well, according to what's his name, Gary at whatever, or Gap, you should do this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
All right. And it does that. We've been doing it for the last year. That is empowering. And then you say, okay, well, let's role play it. Right, Art? I mean,
Right.
you know.
So with role playing, can it teach me how to deal with curmudgeons? Can it teach me how to deal with different personalities that I'm not familiar with? So we talk about the psychology of sales and dealing with different people, and psychology of people is that they're either red, blue, green, or yellow, or they can be a mix of all the colors. But what colors are predominant? So a lot of times when you're in sales, you have to really listen hard to find out what color that person is. And then at times you have to transfer your talk track to their color, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Art, that was one of your good idea, was to engage that. And that's a whole system. Again, I don't want to do it just injustice, but that's a whole system of matching personality types in a sales cycle, right? And being able to address a yellow if you're a green, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's encoded.
Correct.
But that's the system. It's really funny that you don't know this. I just ran that this afternoon.
Oh, cool.
Right? I have a meeting Monday afternoon with someone I've never spoken with.
Right.
Right. But because of the interwebs, and this LLM, I did a lot of research on what their organization is set up, how the decision processes work, what type of personality. Now, the personality, it's a guess, right? It's a guess based on what's out there in social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
It's a pretty good freaking guess, though. I was reading, go, oh my gosh. And in this particular case, we were able to find 4 different decision makers, and they all had different colors, and a script outline was designed for each one for this meeting coming up, and based on my color too. So it didn't just do a blanket; it just knew who I was.
Right.
You and I, 10 years ago, it would have taken 2 weeks of training to forget 80% of it, and then 3 days later, what color thing? I don't even know
Or
what you're
three
talking about.
or 3 or 4 meetings to finally figure it out, or
Yeah.
2 or 3 lost meetings because you didn't figure it out and you
Right.
lost the opportunity.
But you're right about the one thing, Art. The role playing, it's not like it's more than what we're used to. All right, because you can do a role play, say, all right, I'm going to do a cold call role play. You be the customer, Mr. LLM, and I'll be the salesperson. Ring, ring, that whole thing.
Right. But the salesperson, when you do that, when you do it between salespeople or somebody within your organization, the point is that somebody gives up to make it easier for you. I don't want somebody to give
Right.
up to make it easier for me. I want you to challenge me and let
Right.
me come back with what I think is correct. And that's probably the most important part about that whole one-on-one and prospecting and interacting with that client.
It is. And
Role
Art,
playing.
what you just said is the prompt. You tell it. You tell Celeste, but I don't want you to agree with you. I want you to argue with me. I don't want
Don't
this
be
to
easy on me.
Don't be easy. I want this to be challenging. And guess what? She won't. It will not vary from that. You won't get an appointment because you've just told her, I don't want, you have to, and
So wait a minute.
yeah,
If I'm not going to get an appointment. So what did Kirk do?
You gonna cheat? You gonna reprogram it?
Just maybe. What was that? The
Kobayashi
Kobayashi
Maru. The
Yes.
Kobayashi Maru. Yeah, he cheated. Yeah, he changed the programming.
Right.
Well, Art, that's not the spirit of the test, Art.
I completely understand, but if I can't win, I need to find a way to win.
Here's what you need. Okay. You're
But
gonna learn a lot by not winning.
but you
That
should also
is,
know
you're absolutely correct.
you
Winning, losing
should-
creates winning.
know when to cut bait, right? If you're wasting
That-
your time on something that ain't gonna happen, then you got to know when to just move on.
That's
right?
true as well.
That's the qualification. Right. Let them. Well, anyway, my example was just be tough because,
Yeah.
I don't even know if the LLM will be as tough as a real customer. I mean, seriously, it's like,
So maybe at our meeting next week, maybe we can have some interaction to show everyone.
we can create a
Is there a
persona
chance we
of a.
can
Oh
we
yeah.
can do that and we can hear it interact on a show?
Well, now you're talking technology. I don't know. Maybe. I got the LLM already created. We can create a persona. We can tell it to be the most curmudgeon PA at the water district of New York City. Try
like
to go
that.
sell that guy. Paper clips.
How do you sell somebody who doesn't want to be sold?
Well, yeah. And there's no one who doesn't want to be sold more than a PA stuck in a cube down in the basement
Yeah,
of the
so-
water district selling or buying sticky pads and whiteout.
I've had customers that didn't want to buy from me, not because they didn't like me personally, but they just couldn't. They were so ingrained to a certain vendor, right? They were not going to change.
Correct. I've
And
seen that.
it was
Yep.
no amount of convincing that was ever. So I created a spreadsheet and they could not argue the numbers and they ended up buying it. It was a big deal. So, but I would have wasted a lot of time. Oh, trying to take them to dinner and smoosh talk them and this. Nothing was going to work except the numbers, right? If a robot could have told me that, then I wouldn't have wasted any time even trying to go down those roads.
Oh.
But-
Or if a robot would have been able to train you to recognize it.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
Because these people had a beautiful process, right? And again, they were ingrained in a certain vendor. They loved them. They weren't going to change. The only thing that I shamed them into it with the numbers, right? And a robot could have said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe even observing them. Hey, they're wasting time here, and it was like this. I put a spreadsheet together and I said, you save 15 seconds on scanner startup time.
Mhm.
And you save a few seconds here, a few seconds here, times number of people, numbers of scanners, number of processes, number of hours you're working, and then you just put the numbers together, and it was a no-brainer.
They
But
bought it.
yep, big deal.
See,
Yep.
I've noticed sometimes that's a soft cost, and sometimes clients just don't pay attention to soft costs because they say, well, we're spending that money already.
They wouldn't have if I didn't call it out, but I put it on a spreadsheet on numbers, right? That 15 seconds here and 3 seconds there added up, and at the end of the
Right.
day, it made sense.
Interesting. Loading paper trays, feeding documents into
Yeah,
the document
yeah.
feeder,
The
opening
job.
up your scans, checking your
Yep,
scans,
yep,
moving your scans.
yep, yeah. All that took time.
The best way to save money on that is not buy a copier.
No, time is money.
What's the cheapest document? The one you don't print.
That's right.
Well, yeah, because everything you
I'm
print
just kidding.
costs, well, it's true. Everything you print costs you money. You got to pay for the paper, you got to pay for the service, you got to pay for the supplies.
Yeah.
Printing is not free.
No, but it's the result of the document that you're outputting. It isn't just the print, sir. It's a penny a page, but what did that page earn you
Right.
in whatever? Yeah, you can turn that on. Yeah.
Some
Anyway.
will say it earned me a overages on my maintenance agreement.
Some would say that, yes.
Yes.
Then somebody
Well,
will say this contract that I printed out that I go sign made me $10,000 deal, right?
right.
Or this marketing brochure I printed out and made me 500 new customers or whatever.
Boy, that used to be so much easier in the olden
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
But you're right. I mean, that was color, right? Back,
yeah.
you've got two proposals. They say the exact same thing. One's in black and white and one's in color. Which one's going to win?
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that as a leverage point to make a purchase. My God, those are the gravy days.
Works.
Yeah.
BTA is going on too. I've seen some LinkedIn stuff, but I don't know any details.
Yeah, they just finished something up.
Quite a
Didn't they,
few
Art?
people there in New Mexico.
It looked
Quite a
like
few
it.
people. I was surprised. I wanted to go, but
I heard it was good, but I don't know specifics.
I just couldn't.
looked
I just
crowded.
couldn't spare the time.
And they did go see horses. That would have been reason enough for me.
Yeah.
Horses, bulls.
Bulls.
Did they have any camels there?
I did not see any camels. No.
They don't have camels in New Mexico.
That's weird that they don't, but I don't. Well, they probably do. Camels and llamas, but I didn't see any at the BTA.
I think it's the high desert, so maybe there could be.
Well, no, I agree. The temperate zone would be conducive to camels. Absolutely. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't go look for flying saucers.
Correct the window.
That's where they're all in. They're all in New Mexico. Is
And
it Area 51?
and Ray
Yeah.
was there with a funky hat.
Ray was there?
Did you see Ray's funky hat?
No, I did
Yeah.
not see Ray.
Yes. Yes, I guess like, where did you get that hat from?
Were they giving him out, or did he actually? Oh,
No, that was something he probably acquired at the ranch.
did he get a free bowl of soup?
No, that I don't know.
That's from Caddyshack. Oh, look at this hat. Who would buy this hat? But you get a free bowl of soup with this hat.
Interesting. I just saw a couple of replays on the TikTok for Caddyshack. One of my favorite movies.
Yeah. Okay, Art. So yeah, next week let's work on it between then and now to bring up Celeste and you know what? That's a really good idea. Ask Celeste anything.
Ooh, there you go.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
You have to see if you can make it work.
it'll work. I don't know what it'll say. It'll be right.
That's the whole idea of Gen AI. You never know, right?
It'll be right. I've got her trained as a certain personality, writing and analytical.
So I volunteered to do the role play with Celeste.
Ooh, you are.
And if it beats me up, I'm gonna be pissed.
It won't be. All right, you're too savvy to be beat up by a robot.
I don't know. I get beat up a lot of times with robot chess.
Oh, well, she is. I have trained her to be a chess champion. But you need that. It's 3D chess, by the way, because
That's the only way you're going to get better. You got to
Yeah.
challenge yourself, right?
Mhm.
You got to explore new options. And sometimes you got to think 5 or 6 moves ahead of your competition.
Yeah, and while we're on the LLM subject, there's a couple of studies. Apple released a study, and then MIT just released a study that says the usage of LLMs will cause you to lose cognitive skills, cognitive thinking skills.
I doubt it.
It's exactly right. But both studies came out and made a big splash until you read the study, right? It was like a pool of 12 people. So, dude, come on,
Okay.
come on. And then when you look at the Apple one, there were inconsistencies, not inconsistencies, but narrow focus on a study. And these games, you got to have as wide a focus as possible. And then it came out right before Apple's big meeting, and they're kind of lacking in AI right now. So
Yes, they are.
yeah, they have they're perceived as being lacking. I think there is something going on behind the scenes, but I haven't seen it yet. But anyway, that came out. It'd be interesting to do that next week, Art. I'd like to do that.
Right. So one other thing I want to talk about before we close the show,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Kevin can tell our audience more about this. We've got a sneak peek going on for the Twain Convergence Conference,
Yep.
and then the main Twain Convergence process in November.
Yeah, so I'll just take a second here. So the event itself is in November, on November 12th and 13th in Safety Harbor, Florida. We've done 2 of them in the past couple of years. They've been great events, so it'll be similar to that. But this one will be very focused on AI and robotics specifically. Everybody knows Twain is we make a specification that connects scanners and software applications. So now we're considering with Art and Greg's help with our consortium, we're considering branching into other places of connecting software applications to robotics. And this will be a showcase at the Converge conference. It's previously been called Developers Day, but it's much more than a Developers Day. There is a hands-on integration option for people that want to come and do hands-on programming. But then there's also business discussions and business presentations and talks about use cases and case studies about using data for LLMs and robotics. Okay, so the main event is in November. There's information on our website at twain.org. Go there, you can download the preliminary agenda on the technical side or the business side. So it's a great event. It's a smaller event. It's not like a huge CES conference where there's thousands of people. There'll be, maybe 60 to 70, 80 people total. So we want to keep it intimate. And it's about one full day and then one evening. So it's an evening, you come in on the 12th and then day on the 13th. But next, I think the 26th is next Wednesday. Whenever the 26th is. I'm doing a sneak peek preview webinar on going into the details of it. So I'll spend, 30 minutes or 40 minutes talking about the event, the prior year, what we're doing with the robotics consortium with Art and Greg. So we'll have a little sandbox where these robots are going to be programmed to do stuff. We'll encourage you to come up and, talk to the robot, ask the robot to do stuff. And Art, like you said, he bought a robot, we're programming it. So we'll do some stuff. And it'll be fun. So it'll be fun, but it'll be educational too. Twain is a group. We don't make a final product. So we want to invite our ecosystem partners to be part of it. And if you're a software company, a security company, a robotics hardware, everybody's invited. Twain's an open tent. But so this webinar will be a sneak peek about that. So I encourage you to register. Even if you can't attend live, you'll get the recording. And we'll be talking about what we're going to do at Converge in November.
Right.
Cool.
And I think Joe Barganier should be there, correct?
Absolutely.
Because
Yes.
he's local pretty much.
Lauderdale's right around the corner.
And I can tell you from experience, they've got a really cool pool
Yeah.
and a excellent bar if you're into having some drinks.
Really?
They got a bar, and then just out the front door, it's at Safety Harbor. So it's a beautiful, beautiful place. If you want to bring friends and family,
Yeah, it's
and
a
you
nice
just-
little town.
and you just walk down the street. Everything's within
Yeah.
walkable distance.
Arts, crafts. It's actually a nice little area.
Yeah.
Wow,
I'm
excellent.
hoping next year to actually, I'm going to go go a day early and stay a day late, and
Highly recommended.
make 4 days out of it.
Cool.
Greg,
You know, there's
you'll
one
be
more
there,
thing
right?
just about the crickets. One more thing, because obviously this is a big deal. It's a big push, but and there's more coming down the pike. One of our foundational pillars of the platform is, bringing robots to the channel and bringing the channel to robots.
Yep.
So stay tuned. There's more to come with this in this vein, but even wider. I think it's pretty cool. All right. Excellent, Art. Want to take us out?
It is 4:57. It's Friday. We are done for the weekend. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We want to thank Kevin Neal. We want to thank Greg Walters. We want to thank Joe for listening in and chatting from time to time. But more importantly,